With his arms wrapped around her waist, he caressed her smooth skin as they moved back and forth to the rhythm of the music. The light shone down from a disco ball above, rays of neon green and purple illuminating the horde of teens. With her head resting on Eli's chest, it was easy to forget the crowd of students dancing all around them. It was the night that she didn't know she had been waiting for her entire life. That is, until she had met Eli. His warm embrace pulled her out of a depression that she thought would be the end of her. And then, before she knew it, she was counting down the days until tonight, until the night it would all happen. Sure, there was prom, but the events after prom are what she was looking forward to the most. She was finally ready. He knew she was ready. They'd been together for a whole year now, and he waited patiently for her to feel it was the right time. Her comfort was his priority, he'd say to her. He would be ready when she was. She lifted her head and spoke into his ear, just loud enough to hear over the roar of the music. "I think I'm ready. Let's go." She tugged on his shirt, pulling him through the mass of students. They fought past the punch table and then by the teachers guarding the doors. With a smile and a wave, they were outside. She hurried to his Civic like they were leaving their wedding, and she was about to throw the bouquet. The car started right up, and they were on their way down Maple Avenue. Silence ensued as nervousness scaled its way up her spine. She was ready, but it was surreal to her that it was finally going to happen. She just needed to swat away the butterflies in her belly, tame them, and send them on their way. The silence lasted all the way until they were pulling into his driveway. "Well, it looks like we're here," he smiled. She reached for the door handle, but he placed his hand on her leg. "Wait here for a minute. I want to rush inside and make sure everything is perfect." "All right," she blushed. "Great," he laughed. "Wait right here." He jumped out of the car and jogged to the front door. Once inside, he was surrounded by darkness. The warm June night hung heavy down onto the house as he fought into his pocket to get his phone. He needed a light, and turning on the house lights was not an option, so the phone would have to do. He hurried upstairs. Inside his room, on top of his dresser, sat the jar of rose petals he had prepared for tonight. Rushing back downstairs, he pulled open the cupboard underneath the sink and grabbed a jug of ammonia and a jug of bleach. He ran down the basement stairs with the light from his phone shining bright and sat the ammonia and bleach on a table before running back up, nearly tripping on the final step as he reached the top. He pulled a piece of paper from the drawer and then shuffled around for a pen and some tape. After scribbling a message down, he reached on top of his refrigerator and grabbed the largest knife out of the rack and headed toward the front door. He opened the front door and stuck the paper on the outside of it and waved for Olivia to come in. She hopped out of the car joyfully and bolted over to the door. She reached up and peeled the paper off the door. "Follow the rose petals. I love you." The butterflies were back. A smile burst out from her face as she took note of the trail of rose petals on the floor. "Eli!" she shouted. She reached down and picked up the first petal, and then the second, and so on, guiding herself with the light pouring through the front door until she reached the basement door. She looked around through the dark, tracing the light back to the door and then into the darkness of the hallway. "Eli?" She looked around again and then returned her gaze to where the petals had led her, the basement door. She cracked the door open and stared down into the abyss. "Babe, are we doing it down here?" She paused for a moment as she waited for a reply. "Are you down there?" The reflection of light somehow barely lit up a rose petal that sat on the first step of the basement stairs. She bent over and picked it up, the smile returning to her face. Holding it in hand with the rest, she began down the stairs. The stairs creaked below her feet with each step as the darkness began to surround her, quickly engulfing her. The light from the street lamps no longer lit her way. She was on her own. She quickly jerked around as the door drifted close in a breeze, stopping just before it latched, leaving only a sliver of sight into the hallway. She took a deep breath, her next step leading onto a concrete floor. "Eli?" She peered into the dark. She looked back up at the crack at the top of the stairs before stepping into the shroud of darkness. Looking at the floor, she searched for any remaining rose petals despite not even being able to tell where the floor stopped and everything else began. "Eli!" she called out again. "Pull the light switch. It's right above your head." She reached up and flailed her hand through the air until she caught hold of a thin dangling chain. She pulled it. Light rushed through the air, forcing her to cover her eyes for a moment. Suddenly, her face lit up. "Oh my God, babe, this is perfect." She ran over, wrapping her arms around Eli, squeezing him tight. "We can finally be free." He put his hands on her shoulders. "We can be free. We can get out of here." Her smile was so big it threatened to rip right off her face, and that made him smile. She turned around. There sat a man, Eli's father, duct taped to a chair in the center of the room, the basement light shining on him, revealing his battered appearance, scrapes all over his face, and duct tape over his eyes. She slowly stepped in front of him, staring down at her gift. He moved his head around, dazed but conscious. Faint noises proceeded from behind the tape, but they were too muffled to understand. He shouldn't fight much. I stuck him with just about everything he keeps in that bag of his. Filthy fucking drug addict. I'm surprised he's even conscious. "I'm nervous," she mumbled. "It's all right. It's your first time. I expected you to be." There was a pause of silence. "Here, look." He put his finger under his dad's chin and lifted his head up. "I drew a line." He pointed at his neck. "Right here for you. Just cut along this line." He smiled. "All right?" "Thank you for waiting." The smile returned to her face. "Anything." "Can you cut the tape on his eyes open so he can watch?" she asked softly. "He might start flailing or something." "Right." She stepped forward so that the man was right in front of her. "Carefully," he muttered. As she pressed the knife up against his dad's neck, Eli could see it in her eyes. It was the darkness, the same darkness he felt inside himself every day, the darkness that tore at him with all its anger, and it was inside her, too.